Have you ever wondered about life's biggest questions? Like, why am I here? What happens when we die? Or what else is out there? Well, we have, and we love to talk about it. And if you're listening, we think you probably do too. I'm Robin.
And I'm Karen. And we've spent our lives searching for those answers, and we're seekers just like you.
We'll be talking to some of the most fascinating spiritual teachers, healers, and scientists, and showing you how you can use some of their spiritual practices for yourself.
We'll also be sharing stories of other seekers to motivate you to live your fullest life.
And we'll be translating it all, so the spiritual stuff won't feel so out there.
So if you're curious, get ready to rediscover why we're here together.
I remember when my friend Dr. Amy Robbins called me and said, I just interviewed this woman, Vicky Roncero, and you have to talk to her. She is your people. She was a producer and now she's a Reiki master, and her life was transformed by her own spiritual awakening. And so I checked her out, and indeed, we even worked at Nickelodeon at the exact same time. She is definitely my people. And Karen and I are excited to introduce you to her because she will soon be your people too.
Yes, Vicky, like Robin and I, come from the media production world, putting out goodness from Nickelodeon to Sesame Street. But it was a trip to a spa many years ago that changed the course of her life. It was then that Vicky was introduced to Reiki Energy Healing. And from that moment on, she saw the world in a completely different light, and it would lead her to where she is today.
We're digging into Reiki. What is it and how does it work? And how might it work for you? If you're ever feeling stuck, Vicky's story and her work may be just what you need to hear. Hi, Vicky. We're so happy to see you.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to see you both.
Your journey to becoming a healer is fascinating. You were a very successful writer and producer for many years. And I know you still are doing that too. And yet you became an energy healer. So how did that all come to be?
Well, it actually came to be by getting let go from a job and from a place that you know well, Robin, because as you mentioned, we worked at Nickelodeon at the same time. And there's no coincidences that we're here right now talking about this. But I actually was very much into my job. I loved my job. I was a writer producer. I had grown through the ranks there to senior writer producer. And I was about 8 years into my TV career. And it was one of those like nothing personal, big corporate reorganizations, but I was one of the people let go. And for me, it was really like the rug was pulled out from under me, like that feeling of like, who am I? You know, I had been working there so long, and suddenly that was just in 1 second taken away. I then went to a spa for a couple of days and wanted to just kind of regroup and figure out like what's next for me. And while I was there, I was dancing and hiking and doing all kinds of physical things. And then I really wanted a massage. And the woman at the desk said, no, I'm sorry, we don't have any massages available, but you should try Reiki. And this was like 2001. And I was like, I don't even know what is Reiki, but she explained it. And I said, I'll give that a try. And then quite honestly, I know it sounds very cliche, but what happened in that room was life-changing. I really was in the room. The practitioner was barely touching me. It was very light touch, but I was seeing images. I was hearing sounds. I felt like I was hearing my grandfather's words speaking to me. All of this stuff was happening. And I kept saying to her, what's happening? Do you have a speaker in here? Are there lights in here? What are you doing? And she said, you're connecting with your energy. You're moving your energy. Just trust me. This is really working for you. You're very connected. And at the end of the session, I felt like I had just never experienced anything like that. I was very glad I didn't get the massage, because a massage can work out a knot and make you feel physically better for a little while. But this was working with energy. And I had no idea that we could do that we could work with our memories and emotions and feelings and have them shifted in this way. And it really was just blew me away. So that was my introduction to Reiki. And then she said to me, you know what? A lot came up in this session for you. So go back to your room. You're probably going to have a very healing night. And I want you to come back tomorrow for a complimentary session. So I thought, okay. I went back to my room and I was like crying and then happy. And I was like, what is wrong with me? And the next day I was like, take me to your leader. Like I really felt like I'm going back for that other session. And she said, let's go deeper. And we went deeper and more stuff came up. And at the end, she held my hands and she said, you are very connected to the Reiki energy. You're going to be a Reiki master someday and you're really going to help people. And that felt great to hear. But I was like, okay, well, I'm a TV producer. I'm going to go to New York and get my next job. But quite honestly, I went back in a very different way. I felt like I was no longer so concerned about what's my next job? Who am I? I was like, I know who I am. My job is just a part of me. And I realized that I was giving way too much of myself to my job. Over the years, as I went back into TV, I'd have this little voice like, you want to do this, you want to learn this. And I had this curiosity. So I took Reiki 1 and Reiki 2, and then all the way to Reiki 3 and then Master, and then started to actually do this for other people.
Did you ever have a sense of these gifts when you were younger?
I always definitely I was very sensitive to energies. When I was 10 years old, I was on the bus coming home from school, and I got this message. I didn't know the voice. I didn't know, it was like a voice in my head that said, Opa died. And my grandpa, that was my Opa, he was fine. He died suddenly of a massive heart attack. And when the bus pulled up to my bus stop and I walked up my driveway, my mom opened the door and she said, I have some sad news. And I said, I know, Opa died. And she was like, yeah. And she didn't say anything like, how did you know that? Or anything strange. She just kind of looked at me and we hugged, but I just knew. And now that I study Reiki and energy, I know that that was his energy. Like I was hearing from his energy that he had passed. So it's really interesting. Like when I look back now, I piece together lots of things and I'm like, oh yeah, there was this and there was that. But it was all to say that I just felt very connected to energies and sensitivities of people and didn't really know what that meant or how to tap into that.
Isn't that funny how we get almost talked out of it when we're little kids?
Yeah.
We know it as little ones. And then by the time we're adults, we forget about it. We need a life-changing experience like yours to bring it back into light, right?
And then when I went to college, also as a broadcast journalism major, studying communications, you're studying every kind of broadcasting and nonverbal communications and interpersonal communications. And to me, I really feel like your energy is the greatest communicator. Like someone can walk in a room and you can know instantly you like something about that person. You feel something about their energy. And you get to realize that energy that's a part of each one of us, that's what lives on long after you pass. And that energy just can never be destroyed. And that's kind of connected to who we are and our light. And that's truly our soul's energy.
I love the way you put that. It's such a good reminder for everybody because we don't actually talk about that enough. I love what you said. You can walk in a room and not say one word, yet there's a feeling. And I also think that you are also in control of your energy to a degree. So you can decide how you're going to be in that room or take responsibility when you're not necessarily bringing your best energy into a space.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
That's the whole goal of Reiki, to be able to regulate that energy. So yes, that's exactly true.
Talk a little bit about Reiki, because I know so many people have heard about it. Can you just talk a little bit about the history of it and what the experience actually is?
Well, Reiki, by definition, is two Japanese words put together. Rei means light, ki is energy. So light energy is what Reiki means. A lot of people, when they say I'm getting a Reiki session, the light energy is actually relating to our life force energy, like the light within you. And your life force is what connects you to every living thing. And the actual man who invented the Reiki system of natural healing, his name is Mikao Usui. He was a Japanese Buddhist monk. He was also a doctor. And he wanted to develop a way to get people to tap into their own healing, to help people heal faster from illness, from injury, from depression, anything that was mental or physical. He wanted to teach people to be able to tap into this energy to aid in the healing process. And the Reiki system of natural healing, it has a lot of different hand positions and visualizations and meditations, along with some symbols and some precepts that you can use for focus. So to answer your question about a Reiki session, if you were to come in for a physical session, a Reiki practitioner would be scanning your energy, trying to see where there's areas of stuck energy that could be compromising you physically or mentally or emotionally. And that's really Reiki's all about. Feeling to heal. So it's getting in touch with your feelings and emotions and allowing them to move. So if you have some stress or some grief or something heavy, some trauma that you've just been pushing down because you've got to just keep like moving forward, all of that energy is just kind of going somewhere. It doesn't leave you. And one day you might say, oh, I have this chronic neck pain, or oh, my knee hurts, or I have a migraine. And a lot of times that's connected to the energy of the feelings and emotions that weren't allowed to move. It's like you have like a physical body, and everybody can relate to their physical body. If you hurt yourself, you're like, ouch, and you have your emotional body and your mental body. If you feel depressed, your feelings down. But your energy body, every single one of your cells in your body has energy. It's easy to think of your heart energy because you can feel it, or the energy of the air in your lungs, but every cell has energy, and all of that energy is creating an electromagnetic field around you. And so the Reiki practitioner is tapping into that field and actually feeling areas where things are stuck and helping with bringing light through their hands. They're helping to move that energy for you to get you unstuck.
Do you have to believe in energy healing in order to benefit from a Reiki session?
If you go back to like ancient healing modalities from Eastern culture, like people were working with healing and hands-on healing and all different kinds of modalities that involve the chakra system. And to me, I feel like at this point, it's very exciting. There might have been like 10 years ago, like when I was at the spa and they were like Reiki, I was like, okay, what's that? But I feel like right now is such an exciting time. Like I was at a convention earlier this year, an integrative health convention, and to see like Eastern and Western medicine just kind of melding, and doctors who are very rooted in modern medicine really sort of starting to embrace those ideas that like our chakras play a big part in our healing. It's very exciting. So I think that, yes, there is like a belief system that needs to be in place. But I always tell people, like, come and try it. If you're feeling like, oh, I don't know, does this really work? Give it a try. And it's like 100% of the time, people are definitely impressed with how they feel, because it really doesn't fail. It's like once you're calling on your energy and you're connecting with their energy, the healing starts to happen. It's like your body instinctively knows. I tell people in workshops, like if you bang your elbow and you're like, oh, and you naturally put your hand on your elbow to make it feel better, you instinctively know how to heal yourself with the energy of your own body. So Reiki is really about using your own healing to heal yourself.
Is there any challenge that you have now doing it over Zoom?
Well, what's really interesting is in Reiki, you learn the different levels as you go. In Reiki 1, you're learning self-care Reiki, how to do it on yourself, and how to do a chair session on someone else, but you can't go out and become like a Reiki practitioner. It's just really if you want to do it on family members or friends. But Reiki 2 is where the magic happens, because in Reiki 2, they're actually teaching you how to transmit Reiki through space and time. And if you think like just how right now we're communicating on this Zoom, it's all because of the energy frequencies. Years ago, we couldn't do this. And the other day I was having a Zoom with a woman in Romania. And I really I'm still in awe of the technology, the fact that we could do this. And it's exactly the same kind of thing with distance healing. Like once you get connected to your own energy and you sync up with someone else's, it's just like making a phone call. It's like you're matching their frequency and you're transmitting energy to them. And you both had a distance healing with me. So it's effective. But it's really about trusting that the human body is even more advanced than technology. Like if we can do this through the technology, we certainly can do this with our human energy. It's really about becoming a conduit and just like allowing it to come through. And you just meditate on their address, their location, if you need to do that at first to kind of help you get there. But after a while, you don't even have to do that anymore. You just really have to just be thinking of the person and they're thinking of you. And it's like, you're there.
How does it integrate with your chakras?
You have 7 main chakras, and each one is related to a function and an energy. So for example, like an obvious one, the heart chakra is controlling your feelings of love. And if you've just gone through a breakup, or if you're feeling very guarded, you've met someone and maybe you're just afraid to get hurt again. When someone's doing Reiki on you, they can feel you have a guarded heart chakra, and you want to try to work on that and open that and get that to the point where like they can be receiving love again. And the same thing with like moving further down, your belly button area is your solar plexus energy. And that's your confidence and your power. A lot of times people can have, like me, a job loss or something that kind of shakes your foundation a little and your power feels like it's off. Anytime that someone's in for a Reiki session, you're scanning their body and you're putting together their story. And to me, as a storyteller coming from this writer producer background, that's really what lights me up. I feel like, wow, okay, there's something here in the heart chakra, and then there's something here in the power, and then I piece together the story and work with the person. And it's really about helping people realize that they're not their story. They're not stuck in that energy of that story or that victim feeling. They are the storyteller, and it's up to them to create the next chapter. So it's all about moving the person into the next chapter and saying, hey, where do we go from here? It's new day, new energy. It's a mindfulness practice, getting to be in the now, not worrying about something that happened in the future, or bringing that energy into the present.
How often do you suggest doing a Reiki session for somebody to really work through a challenge or an issue they might be having?
Well, it really depends on each person. Like for me, when I had that Reiki session at that spa, I didn't have like an injury or an illness or like an issue. You know, it really for me was like a shift that kind of really changed my mindset. It's like, it's really just about connecting to what lights you up and what brings you joy and what makes you feel connected to your light. And when you feel that and then you move through that, you can sometimes be like, wow, I have an idea for the next thing I want to do. Rather than feeling bad about it, I'm going to start putting this in action. And so if it's somebody like that who's looking for like, what's the next thing for me, they might want to come like once a month. And as they're working towards that goal, you're working with them on that new story. If someone's moving through an injury, like they've just gotten surgery and they're there for the physical piece to kind of move the energy to help the physical heal, then it depends on, sometimes I work with like a physical therapist will refer someone to me and say, go for Reiki once a month, come for physical therapy once a week. Like you kind of figure out what's best for each particular situation. I also had some that were going for therapy that, you know, the psychologist would say, why don't you try a Reiki session? Because therapy is wonderful, but you can be stuck in the narrative and be talking over and over about the same thing. And Reiki is kind of more about moving the energy and getting it out of the way so you can bring in something new. Like I tell people sometimes in workshops, it's like we all know the feeling of wanting to go out and buy some new clothes. And then you come home and you open your closet and you're like, they don't even fit in my closet. And so until you take the time to really take everything out of that closet and clean it out, then you're like, okay, now my new clothes look great in my closet. But people don't like that piece of it. I mean, I hate cleaning closets. So to dig and to start like, you know, making a bigger mess before you get to the place where it's making sense is a hard thing. Like you're asking people to say, okay, if you really want to heal this and just stop talking about it, let's really get to the root of this.
Well, I love what you just said. There is a marriage of integrating the Eastern and Western practice.
Oh, yeah. I'm seeing that a lot. And it's very exciting because you feel like, again, it used to be maybe that Reiki was something that was like woo-woo, you know, and it feels to me like more and more like the woo-woo is becoming normal. Like I was listening to an energy healer and he was saying this great speech about how like in the 70s, if you were sitting in your house and you saw someone go jogging, you'd be like, whoa, where's that guy going? Why is he in such a rush? What's going on? You know, is his house on fire? What happened? And then now it's like we see joggers and it's like, oh yeah, they're jogging. Like it's so accepted. It's part of our culture. But it's the same. Like I really believe that fast forward maybe 10 more years, going to see an energy healer, having Reiki, integrating this all is going to be a very natural piece of your healing, which I think is really exciting.
Let's talk about how your sessions work. I feel like everybody has their own unique way of practicing energy healing. And even though it's all under, let's say, the umbrella of Reiki. So how do yours work?
It's interesting because in order to do an effective session, you really have to worry less about what you're doing and what you're like what you're being for that person. Like you truly are becoming a conduit for that energy. And when people came in and they had their session, you have to spend at least 10 to 15 minutes before they come to just kind of do the healing practices of like bringing the light through you and getting in that meditative state. Now that it's a lot of virtual and I'm doing a lot more distance healing than in person, and I'll take the same 10 or 15 minutes, I'll just sit quietly and I'll be in my space where I do those healings and meditate and think of myself becoming a conduit for the light.
Whether you are in person or you are distance, what are you seeing? How does it come to you? How does your intuition play into it? How are you seeing the energy?
you're connecting with energies from other realms, other places. Like when you become this open channel, oftentimes these energies will just come to you like mosquitoes to light, and sometimes you have to kind of just trust your intuition. Like, is this my imagination or is this a message? And that comes with trust. I was working on someone and I said, my goodness, there's this really powerful energy that sounds like this male energy, and he wants to talk to you. So before I begin the Reiki, can I just tell you what I'm hearing? And she said, yes, yes. And I started to just say what I was hearing. And I was texting it back and forth, what was coming through. And at the end, she said, oh my gosh, I feel like I just had a conversation with my grandpa. And I said, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry we didn't even do the Reiki. And she's like, oh, you did a lot more than the Reiki. I became a conduit for exactly what she needed. And she had this conversation with her grandfather that was amazing. And then ironically, that girl told her cousin, and they tested me. She had the cousin do a session. And I said, this is really strange. I know you're friends with this other girl, but I'm feeling the same person coming through. And he has a message for you. Were you close to him? And she's like, I have to be honest, he's my grandpa too. So I was like, come on, girls. Like, they were testing me to see if I would connect with the same energy again. So that's interesting. But then I feel like I don't want to be out in the world saying like I'm a medium and I can channel, because sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't. It's really how connected you are to the energy and what's coming through.
We both have had really incredible sessions with you. And I know that Karen had one recently. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, because there's so much that came out of our session. I think it will help other people to hear my experience because it was so multidimensional. This was a remote session. I was here laying in my bed. We connected via text, which at first I felt was really strange. I'd never had a remote session. I've done Reiki before, but I've never done remote. But what I felt that you were able to do immediately was connect to my heart chakra. Like I felt you were breaking into my heart because I literally felt so much emotion just come out of me that I did not expect. I mean, it was a beautiful day. I wasn't emotionally up or down that day, but immediately I felt a sense of release. There was so much pent up emotion that I didn't know was there. And I mean, I was just crying from the very, very beginning. And I'm not a crier. Robin knows that. I'm really not, but I really felt that sense of release. And you tapped into that like immediately. Then after that, there was more of what was around me, I think that you tapped into because you asked about that Andrea, which is my mother. So you brought up my mother's name. And then you also brought in someone who was in an accident. Did you lose somebody quickly? And I sensed that. And I told you about my sister, Cindy. And so there were people that came into me, which is my point. Yeah. Like it wasn't just that feeling of light and color, which I did get, but then that feeling of like that emotional release. And then hearing all of the people or loved ones of mine that you felt on the other side. And then what was interesting is that you asked me if I played softball. I was thinking, no, that I did, but I hated softball. But before I even said that to you, you said, I think it's a metaphor. I think it's a metaphor. I see you running around the bases and being fearful and not being seen and being part of this team, but not feeling that you're fulfilling the role. I mean, there was so much symbology that came out of that for me was a big aha. And then the music, you kind of let me sit for a bit. And I feel like at the end of it, it was just such an opportunity just to release so much of that really pent up emotion that I really didn't know was there. So much came through. And it was one of those experiences. I was really happy to be in my bed at the end of it and not have to drive anywhere because it was emotional. And it was a big release of pent up energy, I think, that I didn't even know I had. Very healing for me.
Yeah. Well, and the way that works too is that you are texting.
Right? Yes, that's right.
The entire time. So you end up having this whole record.
The texting for me is so that I'm silent, because if I'm talking, like if any of us are talking, the sound vibrations of your own voice are in your head and in your crown chakra, and they're just kind of through you. So the texting just was like a perfect tool to just be really silent and just say, and it's amazing to me how people feel, like people that I don't know, who've never met me, they feel so much more comfortable sharing things that are really personal. But then after we kind of set the intention and we really hone in on on what we're after in the session, I give them 15 minutes to just kind of sit in the music. And the music has vibrations and tones that really help with the healing. And then in those 15 minutes, I'm really in like a deep meditation. And I'm just letting whatever comes through come through me. And I'm kind of jotting it down so that I could tell them at the end. And then the last 15 minutes, we kind of exchange, what did you feel and what it came through and that kind of thing.
It was very, very powerful for me.
I'm so glad.
You are able to channel what that person needs right then and there.
Yeah, that's the intuitive healing piece. Like, you know, I've had other Reiki masters say, well, you shouldn't really call that Reiki. And I don't like to get wrapped up in like the title, because to me, I feel like that's the wonderful thing about this whole work. It's about shedding your titles and just getting closer to who you are, who's your soul, what is your light about, what do you bring to the world? So I don't like to worry about that. Like, oh, I didn't say that I do this. I feel like you kind of have a knowing and a trust. Like, is the person open to this? Would this help them? Or are they just here for this healing? Like you just know, and you kind of start to trust that.
Do you ever do it on yourself?
Yeah, I definitely have done the Self-Reiki since I've took Reiki 1. And to me, that was like when COVID happened, I was like, oh my gosh, everybody needs to know some simple Reiki 1 tools, because there's just like putting your hands across your heart chakra and taking a couple deep breaths. It's scientifically proven to regulate your nervous system, to bring calm to your whole body. And I felt like, oh my gosh, I know these simple tools. I can't just like not share this. So that's when I just kind of hopped on Facebook Live and started doing Reiki Right Now, because I was like, hey, right now we're going to learn some tools to help you feel good in this moment with this crazy energy around us. It's funny because when I was transitioning and doing more and more Reiki and less TV, you know, I have 2 teenagers, and my son, he was like, Mom, you know, I have a teacher, and I was telling him that you do Reiki, and he said, anyone can do Reiki. And he meant that kind of in a way that was like, why aren't you doing TV? And I just was like, that's right. Anyone can do Reiki. That's what's so amazing about it. That's what I want to tell everyone. That's what I want to show the world.
I love that you use an example actually of your son saying that, because it's also, it shows too that like, you know, he hasn't gotten to the place yet where it's about fulfillment. Right. It's what's our greater purpose, and all of the years you spent in TV, and do to a degree now, but led you to realize, wait, I need to do this because it makes my soul more fulfilled. Whereas someone else may need to stay in TV because that's how they feel fulfillment, but everybody is different.
Yeah. And kids are funny that way. Cause like my son also plays sports. And if he gets hurt, he's like, could you do a little Reiki on my shoulder? Yeah. And what I'm hoping is, like you said, it's like we move along our life path and we learn all these different skills. And it's like, to me, it's really all the storytelling. It's like to be able to help someone work through their current story of their life. It's like your life is your story unfolding. And you might be in this chapter right now and feel like, oh my God, I'm so stuck. But to work through this chapter and turn the page to the next one, it just makes you realize like, wow, it's a story that's unfolding with each day. And you're really the writer, producer, director of your own life. It's really, really exciting when you can show people that and they see that they're creating the life that's unfolding with every choice that they make and every decision that they're making. That's the part that really gets the storyteller and me very excited.
Well, and you're probably also seeing pieces of their story that they haven't seen themselves.
Yeah, exactly. I was mentioning earlier that sometimes, you know, the people who did know me in the TV world, or maybe think that this was a big switch for me, I sometimes feel like when I'm in someone's energy, I feel like I'm in an edit room. Like I'm looking through, shuttling through the story. Like I was a promo producer, and I would produce promos for everything from Dora the Explorer to Breaking Bad. And you'd have to shuttle through and find the best little pieces that were going to make the biggest impact in 30 seconds. And so when you're scanning someone's energy and you're like, oh, what's this? You know, who's this person? Or what does this mean to you? And you mention things, they're like, wow. So it really is true. Like those little even flash frames that can help them with their story. It's really exciting. You know, I think that it's really what you're putting out into the world is what comes back. And it's just, that's what I tell people. A lot of people who have sessions are just like, you know, I want to find love. And they just feel so like, I need to find love. And you feel like, whoa, you first have to be love. Like you have to love yourself, and you have to open your heart, and you have to really let love come through you. And when you do, love will come to you. And when they get that and they make that shift, they're like, oh my God, gosh, I was so stuck on like, where is Mr. Right? And like, I've got to find him, that it wasn't about like opening their own self and their own love and letting that kind of energy come in. And it's really beautiful when you connect with what is that positive energy and you kind of shift things. It's like you can choose to look at all the negative things in the world and talk about it. And then that's kind of what's going to attract itself to you. But if you look for the good things, they're out there. And when you notice them and talk about them and bring them through you, then more of them come to you. And I know I sent you a link to my healing grid project. It was the first night of isolation. And I felt like, okay, again, that feeling of like, what can I do for people? And in Reiki, along with like the distance healing, you can sometimes create a healing grid. Like, let's say there's somebody who's in the hospital and you want to put a crystal on a healing grid and you want to send energy to the grid across like the 5 days that they're in the hospital. And so instead of setting up a distance healing each time, you just visit your grid and that crystal and you just send that energy and it's representing the person. But I just had this idea, wait, what if I take my grid and I take a picture on Facebook and I say, hey, if you want to be on this healing grid, I'll send you distance healing for free in the first night of isolation. And so I was all excited and I took the picture and I put it on Facebook. And in the first night, 28 people signed up. And I was like, wow, that's great. 28 people. And I wrote out their names and I stuck them on the grid. And as the nights went on, it was like 100 more, 200 more. Soon my grid was so filled with names that I needed to make another one and another one and another one. I was making grids out of pizza boxes and mashed potato boxes. And like, it didn't matter what it was made out of because it was all covered with names. And it was about the love and the positivity and the energy that was going into the grid with the healing night after night. And every night at 10:45, I would do the transmission. By the 11th week, we had 5,628 people on the grids. I had 10 of them all over my living room floor. It was just really beautiful because right before my eyes, while the news is talking about more and more cases of COVID and contagious, I'm seeing like the light growing. We are now in this time of something totally unbelievable happening in our world, and people are opening their belief system. They're like, maybe I should start believing in something else because whoever thought this would happen. And then I have one more thing I'd love to talk about in terms of projects, because in what you were saying, Robin, about taking all the pieces of you and kind of saying, okay, I'm a writer, I'm a producer, I'm this, I'm that. I did a lot of voiceover work when I was in the television world. And so last year I reached out to a friend of mine who's a music composer and audio engineer. And I said, can you make some meditation tracks for me for a workshop I'm doing? And he sent me back these beautiful meditation tracks with sounds of crystal bowls and different tones and different vibrations. And there's literally like science attached to that, like love frequencies, like 528 hertz. And when you put these frequencies in these soundtracks, it does something to you energetically. So that, along with Reiki and along with the words, it's just this beautiful healing. So we decided to start a little side business that we call Here to Heal. And what it is like, let's say you have a distance healing session and something comes up that you're working on. I then write the meditation and I voice the meditation and I pass it off to him. And he creates a beautiful soundtrack with frequencies that help move you to the desired outcome. And what's great is that it's saying throughout, like, Robin, place your hands on your heart chakra and breathe with me. Like, you really feel as you're listening to it that you're very connected. And in this time of like not being able to be so connected or physically go for a session with someone, there's something so nice about having that personalized, customized meditation.
That is so meaningful. And you're so talented. I know who you're working with. He's talented. And I feel like that is going to be such a gift for so many of your clients.
Yeah, I'm really excited. We've created some generic ones that, you don't have to wait for your personalized meditation. We did some chakra shots, which is like 7 little mini meditations for each chakra. And we did one on love and one on boosting immunity, one on abundance. So there's like a nice variety. And then we also have an offering where you can gift someone one. So you can say, can you make a meditation for my friend? Here's her issue. I don't think that kind of thing has been done before. And I'm really excited about that.
That is so smart.
I can't wait. I'm definitely, first of all, I'll be using the generics and I'll get a customized one for myself.
It's really, I'm so excited. I feel like so lit up, like, yay, all the worlds kind of came together, Here to Heal.
Well, and I know one of the things actually that Karen and I have been talking about is wanting to dive more into frequencies. I have a question too, going back to when this happened in 2001, where you had this Reiki session. Have you done your astrological birth chart?
Yeah.
Because I wonder if they could pinpoint that year, or if that was supposed to happen that day.
Right. Yeah. I did have a birth chart reading where they said that I would be like stepping into my gifts and be like fully realizing who I was by the time I was like 50. And what was weird to me was like, I had said to my husband, I learned Reiki 1 and Reiki 2. And I just was like, I want to be a Reiki master by the time I'm 50. Like for some reason, that was my thing. Now it's almost 4 years since that milestone. And I just feel like I'm so like, like I feel this is what I'm meant to be doing. And it's not just one thing or the other. It's infusing all of it. It's like saying, hey, this is who I am. You just have to have the courage to really just not care. And something about being that age makes you feel like, who cares anymore, you know?
Oh, listen, in my 40s, that's what this has been about.
Yeah.
I mean, this is who I am. You may think I'm nuts, but I swear I'm really here to help.
Right. It's so true.
Vicky, is there like one little Reiki tip that you could offer? So if somebody wanted to do one thing on themselves, you were starting to say about your heart chakra, but like, can you just give us like one simple thing that we can do ourselves?
Yes, definitely. I mean, the heart chakra is really a great one because when you're connecting with your heart energy, since it's a place where you can physically feel your energy and you're like, okay, I'm feeling that heartbeat. When you can take deep breaths and really connect with that heartbeat and start to take even just like 5 really deep breaths, you begin to feel the heartbeat getting slower and you know, okay, this is working. I sometimes imagine like every breath in, you imagine you're breathing in beautiful, bright, white light. And then when you're exhaling, you're just releasing anything that no longer serves you. But there's one really simple hand position. That's the first hand position you learn in self-care. And it's literally, you're taking your hands and you're just putting your face in your hands. It's like you're surrendering to whatever feeling you have. So your fingertips should actually be touching your forehead and your palms of your hands are on your cheekbones. So your hands are cupped and they're supporting the weight of your head as you just kind of lean into this position and allow whatever feeling is there. And the fingertips in this position are actually activating your third eye energy and connecting with your intuition to help you solve the problem, to help you find the energy to move through whatever this is that you're surrendering to. Just like surrendering to what is, and just like having the permission to feel your feelings. When you can just allow the feeling, it's really about, feel it to heal it. Like once you recognize this is a real feeling and I'm surrendering to this feeling and I'm allowing it, and you're just calling on your higher self to help you with whatever this situation is. And you can stay in this position for like a second or 5 minutes or have a good cry in this position. And then the second position is putting your hands on top of your head with your fingertips touching across the top of your head. So this position is activating your crown chakra or your connection to your higher self. And it's a nice way to follow that up because it's basically saying, I've now surrendered and allowed this feeling. And then I'm rising to the occasion, lifting my chin, putting my hands on top of my head and allowing my higher self to help me solve this problem. Part of the reason I loved Reiki self-care so much is because it's like this choreography, but there's something about the flow of these two, just simply surrendering and then connecting with your crown chakra. It's like saying, here I am, and this is what is, but then I'm connecting with my higher self, having this trust and this connection to this knowing that it's going to be okay. So it's like surrender and then stand tall in your power. That whole idea of allowing feelings. Now that we're in this online school and kids are working on computers so much and stuff, I really feel a responsibility. Like I did a bunch of Girl Scout troops, did a lesson with me. I teach a program called Reiki for kids. And I do some activities, some songs, and I teach Reiki in ways that kids understand and find it like tapping into their power. They find that kind of cool. All of us, like our generation is really the last generation that knows what it was like to like not have all this technology and an iPhone and Snapchat and all these things. And it's scary to have teenagers and to see that like they're more comfortable snapping a friend than saying hi. Like I'll be with my daughter and she'll see someone in the grocery store. Oh, I know that girl. Oh, say hi. No. But then like they can snap. Like it's so frightening to me because I feel like all of these different feelings that are in us, like empathy, compassion, are feelings that this younger generation might not know if they don't have this connection. So for me, that's also another one of my real like missions. I feel very connected to the children's television work that I did for years at Sesame and Nickelodeon. And the idea of like using those skills and integrating with them with Reiki to teach kids about connecting with their feelings.
I agree. And I would be signing my daughter up for that because, she doesn't even know that she's missing that. And then do you have any thoughts or wisdom that you can share to everybody listening or watching about what's going on in our world?
Well, what's scary to me, but it's also a lesson. A lot of people, when this first happened, they were like, oh my gosh, I had plans to go to Italy, or I had plans to do this or that. Like suddenly their plans were changing, but they weren't seeing like the bigger picture, like that this was, aside from being inconvenient, it was a much bigger thing. And right now, we've moved into a very, very dark place, and it's about connecting with the light. Like to me, it's just really resonates because it's about being resilient and finding the light in the darkness. And what I tell people with Reiki, sometimes you're working with someone who's in a really bad place, and they say like, I just don't see any light. It's only darkness. And even if you could get the person to connect with just a glimmer of light, like if you turn on a nightlight in a room, suddenly the room has light. So it's about kind of finding that light. I feel like there's a lot of spiritual workers that are really trying to find, maybe this has been a time about sharing your gifts. Maybe it's been a time about families and more togetherness. And maybe the people who were so worried about the different inconveniences, those things, like your priorities have shifted, and you just kind of realize that like, wow, we all kind of are in this together, but in different ways. But it's really about recognizing the priorities that are kind of in all of us and how they resonate and how we can move together through this and be in a lighter place. I also think what comes to mind is what we were talking about earlier, like now that it's become such a technological space, it's important to find ways to integrate human connection. The longer this goes on, we really have to find that interconnectedness, which is really important.
Definitely.
Well, and I think those of us who want to share our light in our different ways, like people like you who are able to develop your gift and give it even more because people need it, that's elevating everybody. That's elevating everybody's energy. And I think it's going to go a long way to when we do come out of this place, is that we'll be higher, our higher selves, because we will have taken advantage of some of these things. And that's our goal, is to be able to show people whatever works for you, whatever resonates with you is something to try, something to, something we can all explore.
Yeah.
Right.
So true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and if someone's having issues finding the light, that's what Reiki can help with. Thank you so much. This is
so great.
I feel like a lot of people have learned so much about Reiki, and I'm sure that they've heard of it. They just didn't really, if they haven't tried it, now they have a much better understanding. And I have a feeling you're going to hear from people, and you're also going to inspire a lot of people.
Great. I'm so glad. Thank you for giving me that opportunity. Thanks, guys.